The flashing red and blue lights cut across the tree line like something straight out of a crime drama. Except this wasn't TV. This was my driveway on a cold November morning, and apparently, I was the suspect. I could feel my stomach drop like a stone, and for a second I thought maybe I was still dreaming. But then I saw her, standing just beyond the patrol car, arms crossed, chin tilted high like she was the sheriff herself. Janet McAllister, president of our HOA, my very own self-appointed nemesis. Now to understand why this scene even happened, you gotta know a little about where I live. My wife and I settled on about 7 acres of land just outside a little town called Maplewood Grove. My parents own the next stretch of property over. So between us we've got enough woods, creeks, and open fields to make you forget there's a subdivision just a mile down the road. It's quiet, it's private, it's home. And hunting, done right, by the book, has been a part of that life for me since I was a teenager. Nothing crazy, just a couple weekends each season, always tagged, always legal. My dad loves when I bring home venison, and he loves any excuse to fire up his old red tractor, rattling and coughing, but still running like a champ after 40 years, to help haul the deer back to the shed. The only problem is that our little slice of heaven happens to fall under the jurisdiction of the Sycamore Meadows Homeowners Association. And Janet runs that HOA like a queen with a crown no one asked her to wear. Clipboard in hand, always quoting bylaws, always patrolling like the sidewalks were her kingdom. She's been circling my family's land for years, talking about community nature trails and shared recreational space, hinting that maybe our woods should be opened up to the neighborhood. Every time she brought it up, I told her as politely as I could manage, sometimes less polite than others, that our land wasn't public and she didn't get a say in what happens on it. Thing is, folks like Janet don't take no for an answer. Last year, right before deer season, somebody set up a makeshift blind on our property without asking. Couple of our trail cams went mysteriously dead. SD cards pulled right out. Too convenient, too perfectly timed. We replaced them with cellular models, the kind that send photos straight to your phone, so if someone tried sneaking around again, we'd know. Couldn't prove it was her or one of her HOA loyalists, but my gut told me it wasn't a coincidence. Fast forward to this year, opening day of deer season. Ground frosty, breath hanging in the air. 10 minutes in, a buck wandered right into view. I lined up, steady, pulled the trigger. Clean shot. My dad heard it from the kitchen, threw on his jacket, and like he's done a dozen times, drove down in the tractor, whistling on the way. We loaded the deer, tagged it properly, eased it into the truck bed, and figured that was that. A good morning's work. No drama. Except apparently Janet had been watching us from up the road, binoculars in hand like some suburban spy. Because less than an hour later, here came that deputy and estate game warden, pulling up like they were about to raid a chop shop. The deputy, Rodriguez, said they had a report of illegal hunting. Description of me with a shotgun. The exact timing of the shot. The tractor hauling the deer, the truck driving off. Too detailed. Only way they knew was if somebody had been spying. The game warden, Officer Lane, was polite but firm. "Do you have your permits and tags?" he asked. I handed them over, trying to keep my voice calm even though my hands were starting to shake. My dad stepped up beside me, hands in his pockets, nodding toward the tractor. "This is our land," he said. "That's my tractor. That's my boy's truck. He's got permission to hunt here whenever he wants." That's when Janet sauntered over, her smirk about as wide as the county line. As HOA president, I have a duty to report unsafe or unauthorized activities within the community. Multiple residents have expressed concern about hunting on shared land, she said, eyes darting to the little cluster of neighbors who'd come out to rubberneck. "This isn't shared land," I snapped. The words sharper than I meant them, but my patience was gone. Janet just lifted her chin like she'd rehearsed this moment. "It's part of our neighborhood ecosystem," she declared, like she was reciting from some HOA gospel. Lane looked at me, then back at her, then at the deer in the truck bed. "The deer's tagged properly, taken in the right season, in the right zone," he said. "We're done here." For a second, I felt the tension drain from my shoulders. Relief. Except people like Janet don't just walk away. She started rambling about precedent, HOA policy, how she'd been told hunting was prohibited within neighborhood boundaries. Deputy Rodriguez finally cut her off. "Ma'am, The HOA has no jurisdiction over private property beyond what's in the covenants. There's nothing illegal happening here. You could see her smile flatten, her eyes darting to the neighbors watching. She'd expected to walk away as the hero. Instead, she was standing there with egg on her face. But that didn't stop a creeping doubt from sneaking into my mind. I leaned back against the truck. Thought maybe I should have just let her have her silly nature walk. Maybe if I'd been less blunt, less me, none of this would have happened. Maybe my stubbornness was the real issue. Then I glanced at my dad's tractor, imagined it hooked up to a tow truck, imagined the look on his face if they seized it because of some bogus complaint. He didn't say much, but he finally muttered, quiet but firm, "If they take that tractor, we're stranded when the snow comes." And that snapped me back like a slap. This wasn't about being neighborly or easygoing. It was about the simple right to live on my land without asking permission from a woman whose only authority came from a line on letterhead. So I straightened up, looked Officer Lane dead in the eye, and said, "If you want to see the property lines, I've got the survey map inside. You're welcome to check the trail cam logs too. If someone's been trespassing or messing with equipment, you'll see it clear as day." Lane didn't even need to. He closed his notebook. "You're fine," he said. Deputy Rodriguez gave me a nod, the kind that says, "Keep your head down, but don't give up ground." Then he turned to Janet. "Ma'am, knowingly filing a false report can be considered harassment. We've documented today's call. Any further baseless complaints could have consequences." For the first time since I'd known her, Janet's voice faltered. "I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe," she mumbled. Lane stayed calm. "He's operating within the law. This matter is closed." She didn't argue, just turned stiffly, walked back past the neighbors, not meeting anyone's eyes. Phones were out. Videos already circulating, no doubt. I didn't feel like celebrating, though. I leaned against the truck, watched my dad pat the tractor's hood like he was reassuring it, and thought about how close she'd come to screwing up something that mattered to us. That night, I sent an email to the HOA board. Short, direct. I laid out that the president had made a false criminal report, that law enforcement confirmed I was in compliance, and that any further interference on my property would be met with legal action. Attached the trail cam shot of the deer inside our fence line, and a still frame of Janet on her porch, binoculars glued to her face. 2 days later, word spread that the board had called an emergency meeting. My wife, who still had access to the HOA portal, read me the threads. Turns out, once one person speaks up, others do too. Neighbors started sharing their own stories. Janet threatening fines for mailbox colors not in the bylaws, lecturing people about lawn ornaments, nitpicking paint shades. It all piled up. And within a week, she resigned as president, effective immediately. I saw her once after that, walking near the cul-de-sac, no clipboard, no power suit, just sweatpants and a visor, moving like she didn't know where to go. She glanced my way, then veered off without a word. Power makes some people stand taller, and losing it shrinks them overnight. The following week, a big, "Now hiring" sign went up in the HOA office window, right where her reserved parking spot used to be. I drove by, pulled into my own driveway, parked by the shed. The woods stood quiet, steady, not giving a damn about human drama. And that's when it hit me. My land didn't need her approval to be mine. It just needed me to stand up for it when it counted. Lesson learned. If you don't defend your boundaries, someone else will claim them. So what do you think? Was I right to push back? Or should I have just given in for the sake of peace? Do HOAs really protect communities? Or do they sometimes overstep in ways that make things worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because I want to hear, what would you have done if you were standing in my boots that morning?